So today is a very cloudy day in Vancouver. Hi everyone, it's Becky here. And I'm taking the SkyTrain to Main Street area to Mount Pleasant. So today I'm going back to a favorite cafe in Mount Pleasant and find a different perspective to sketch.
The next station is Main Street Science World.
And then taking the number 3 bus for about 10 minutes to 20th Avenue. So the weather is getting better now, and I'm walking into Liberty Cafe. I really like their coffee and pastries. So I ordered their seasonal rhubarb Danish and a cup of latte as usual. So I'm going to sketch my food and drink first. And I've got this lovely pastry shelf in front of me and a beautiful view outside with this old-fashioned brick building. So I'm going to sketch my coffee and Danish first. So the contour outline of the Danish is a rectangle in the 2D world. Now I want to change from 2D to 3D by adding these two lines. Now it's a rectangular prism and more loose lines to define the crusty texture of the Danish. Now it looks more like a three-dimensional rectangular prism. Adding these little bits of nuts and pieces of rhubarb in the middle of the Danish, and just adding more little bits of crushed nuts here and there surrounding the rhubarb, and then suggesting a bit of the crusty texture on top, accentuate the bottom, and then drawing the little napkin underneath the Danish. It's a rectangle from an angle, so it's kind of like a trapezoid shape, and then part of the plate. So it's okay if you have your plate or any object to float a little bit outside the page. It's more dramatic this way. You don't have to fit everything perfectly inside your page. Now I'm ready to draw my cup of latte, starting with the ellipse shape, the body, and the handle. And then drawing the bottom part of the cup and the thick brim. I think this handmade ceramic cup is really nice. And the latte art, the thickness of the handle with loose lines and segments. Now I'm ready to paint watercolors with my 2 Holbein Water Brushes, my Mungyo watercolor palette, and a towel. Starting to wet these areas with a little clear water. So that's the first layer. The Danish is a super diluted yellow ochre. The latte is a more concentrated yellow ochre with a little bit orange blended on. Now, second layer for the Danish is a mix of yellow ochre and a little bit of orange, more concentrated, which means containing less water. And a diluted magenta for the rhubarb that stands really well in the middle. Third layer for the Danish is a mix of orange and burnt sienna, still in a pretty concentrated version, skipping around some areas for the shiny, crusty areas, and then using pretty much the same color for the next layer of the latte, using yellow ochre to paint the nuts, and some more orange-brown for the lower part of the Danish, another layer of more concentrated magenta for the rhubarb. The cup is white, but the window is on the left, so the right side is shaded. As you can see, I'm doing 2 layers of wet into wet, a bluish gray, by mixing cobalt blue with royal purple. The first layer is super diluted. Second layer wet into wet, a more concentrated version to create a dramatic value transition on the shaded side of the cup. Okay, so now I'm ready to paint the plate, which is a super mellow yellow. So this is a diluted yellow ochre mixed with lemon yellow. For the napkin is yellow ochre mixed with raw umber. And mixing a little bit burnt sienna into raw umber for the napkin, for the second layer, and a little bit of blue and purplish gray to shade the plate as well as the napkin. They have very similar colors. Now painting the shadow of the cup using leftover bluish gray, 2 layers blending together. And adding some retouches for the handle, painting the shadow for the plate, with accentuation close to the edge. Yeah, shadows for everything, including the Danish and the napkin as well. And super concentrated magenta for the rhubarb, so they look even more solid with volume. And final polish here and there, and that's it. And that was a 15-minute sketch. Now it's time to enjoy my Danish and latte. It's really fresh, crispy, and creamy. And now, after eating and drinking most of my latte, I'm ready to sketch the view outside the window on my left. And I'm going to sketch this little dog waiting for his or her owner. Yeah, so the dog is going to be in my foreground, and I'm going to sketch the umbrella probably with people sitting under it. Now, drawing the head with the fluffy ears, the nose and the two eyes, the little mustache, and the leash, the front paws, the back paw, and the tail. Yeah. And the leash of the dog is actually tied to a bicycle rack right behind in a pretty creative shape. So that's the bicycle rack and the dog in the foreground. Now, a couple just sat down under the umbrella, very nice timing. So I just drew the hair and a little bit of the cheek of the lady, her upper body, elbow bending in. Her legs are also bending, sitting on this bench. Yeah, and the legs of the bench. Okay, so that's the lady, the side view. I couldn't see her nose and her eyes because her hair is pretty long, covering most of her face, and that's okay. Now she's holding her cup of coffee this way, talking to her friend or partner. The table, a flat rectangular prism with 4 wooden legs. Now I'm ready to draw her partner, sunglasses, and the smile. Also holding up his cup of coffee this way. They're actually moving pretty fast, so I have to draw the gestures of their bodies from memory. Yeah, so just having fun, there's no mistakes. Capture the moment. And then drawing the edge of his shirt and the thigh. And yeah, so the lower leg is actually covered up by the bicycle rack. So that's the couple. It's a lovely narrative that I just drew. It's pretty hard to capture something like this with camera because they're always moving. And I just captured their best gestures by memory that may not be easily captured by a camera. Okay, and just drew the stick holding the umbrella, the canopy of the umbrella into 3 smaller triangles. And the very top of the umbrella is like a super wonky triangle because it's fabric. And the very top, the other side of the umbrella, or the interior, the little skeletons of metallic bars. Yeah, so umbrellas are super fun to draw. Okay, so now I am drawing the organic outline of the foliage behind. So it can be really satisfying to draw foliage. There's no right or wrong. All you have to do is to try to capture the spirit, the liveliness, using these simple squiggles to suggest the inner texture, and then adding a few branches as you see, drawing this foreground tree. Again, sorry about the flashing light over there. It's pretty hard to predict the lighting condition. Adding the bark texture for the tree. And another table closer to the tree, part of a rectangular prism, flattened. And dividing the tabletop into about 3 wooden planks nailed together, and the bench mostly hidden behind my cup. Drawing the flower bed, which is also made up of these slices of wood. Now, yeah, the weather is getting better. The sun is coming out. Lots of beautiful light and shadows outside. And I'm going to continue on drawing the flowers and leaves inside the flower bed. And using my summarizing approach as usual, not drawing every single blade of grass or a piece of flower. And then moving on to summarizing the clusters of leaves for this tree here in the foreground. Yeah, so these are the cute little claw shapes of the leaves. A little bit of twigs showing in between the clusters. Okay, and now I'm ready to draw the brick building behind everything. I still want to include a little bit of sky for everything to breathe. So I actually changed the proportion of the height of the building compared to the other things surrounding it, making it looking a little shorter compared to real life. So the sky is fitting in. drawing these windows, accentuate partially on some of the window panels. So there's really like rooms behind the windows. That little sign there on the sidewalk. And again, these two windows, there's so much like eyes looking at us. And the door here on the ground level, another door, and another window, I believe, is over here on the ground level. And just adding the metallic bars for this window or door there on the ground level. And then another hidden window here right behind the cluster of leaves. And now I think I'm ready to move on to drawing the brick pattern. Before that, I just want to get the wires done. And using super loose and gentle pressure, the horizontal lines. And then these little segments, or vertical segments, to define the bricks. Yeah, so again, this is a type of pattern that we can just summarize with our sensations and yeah, get it in. You don't have to get every single brick in there for sure. Now it's time to paint the little urban sketch. So I just painted the very first layer of the foreground trees, leaves, using lime green mixed with a little bit of lemon yellow and a bit of yellow ochre. Using quick, loose, chunky dashes of brush marks to get this bright, happy yellow-green in for all of the foliage areas that I can see. Yeah, so overall, if you want your watercolor paintings to shine, you really have to identify the lightest color value that you can see in your environment and get this very first bright color in. Now, second layer, wet into wet, some medium dark greens. This is mostly Viridian green, wet into wet with a yellow green. So there's a little bit of dramatic contrast happening. Yeah, same for this pile of leaves here. Again, not overpainting, preserving some edges, shiny yellow-green. So these clusters of leaves look like they have much more volume compared to just using one color only. Yeah, just having fun. It is a super satisfying experience giving volume to these piles of foliage, and for the lower part as well. Again, keeping a good balance of light and dark by not overpainting. Yeah, and just let watercolor free flow into each other by themselves without disturbing the process too much. Yeah, so just punching these colors in, wet into wet. So there's very minimal, little bit of harsh brush marks. The two colors are blending into each other very gently without any obvious distracting hard edges. Yeah, so I love this wet into wet technique. Alright, so I just cleaned my brush and just grabbed some cerulean blue, diluting the color on paper, yeah, for the sky above the brick building. It's pretty sunny right now with a large area of blue sky above. Lots of sunshine. It's nice and warm. And cleaned my brush. I'm ready to paint the brick area as well as the ground. I think I want to glaze the brick building and the ground with a super diluted yellow ochre to show the warm sunshine landing, actually shining on everything. Yeah, and I just love the experience painting out here in the real world. I'm fully in contact with the whole environment that I'm sketching. It's very holistic, and I don't feel intimidated as I'm immersing myself into this sketching experience. Okay, so now I'm just grabbing some leftover mix of orange and red, diluted with a lot of water to paint these people's skin color, and leftover yellow ochre for the fluffy little dog standing in the foreground, using cobalt blue to paint the umbrella. And now I'm ready to paint the brick building. So this is a mix of orange, red, and a little bit of burnt sienna diluted with a bit of water. It's not super concentrated. And using a really quick loose wash. And as you can see, it's not a perfect flat wash. For a rough brick wall like that, you don't have to do a perfect flat wash. And I just used some leftover brown to paint the wooden flower bed. And then using cobalt blue mixed with royal purple to paint this large chunk of the shadow, mostly of the table and the benches. Yeah. Yeah, and just using the same color for the shadow under that bench and table, yeah, behind my coffee cup. And moving on to the last stage, probably a pretty important stage of my painting is to add contrast. So I just added another layer of more intense cobalt blue for the right side of the umbrella, because the sun, it was more on the left. If you could pay attention to where the light source come from in your environment and then show it in your painting is going to look much more dynamic than just with one single color only. And I just use the super diluted blue purplish gray to paint the white gray wall above the brick texture, playing with various types of browns, light, medium, and dark, playing with water control as well to paint my foreground tree bark. Yeah, and just grabbing some pure cerulean, mix it with cobalt blue to paint these window frames, door frames. Yeah, for both the lower and higher floor. Again, the color of the window frames really reminds me of the windows and doors from my childhood when we used to live in those little houses, not in apartments. And I just love old-fashioned stuff, and I really wish I could live in the past. Yeah. And just grabbing some leftover blue to paint these tables and benches. Yeah, echoing with the umbrella and the sky. And another layer of more intense brown containing less water for the flower bed, so it looks more solid. Blue for the bike rack as well. It's also blue, echoing with other colors in the surroundings. And both of these people, I remember they were wearing black shirts, jeans. So I had to use these leftover colors in my palette, bluish, purplish grays to paint their outfits. And then using purple to paint these violets in the flower bed, some more green and reds for the flower heads, more intense green for contrast in between the flower blades. And yeah, another layer of more intense green, not way too watery, so the paint stays nice and strong and not fading away. So that's how I do higher contrast in my paintings. On the very top layer is to try not to mix in too much water into my paint. And another layer for the tree trunk. This is mostly burnt sienna with cobalt blue mixed in to get a dark sepia color. Another layer for the flower bed for a bit of value transition and interest. And now I want to do the pop-up texture of these bricks standing out from the wall. So this is mostly orange mixed with burnt sienna. And just using the tip of my brush, gently punch these little marks in. And to get this illusion of a relieved texture of bricks. And another layer for the dog's fur using a leftover yellow brown, final polish. That's pretty much it. And now I'm going to show you my finished sketch. Here we go. Here it is. So thank you so much for watching this video, everyone. If you like it, please click like and leave me a comment below. Subscribe to my channel for weekly updates. So I try to update my channel with 2 new videos every week. And now it's time to walk around the inner neighborhood, and I just sketched these 2 pretty houses sitting on the lawn. Yeah, they're so lovely. And then I wandered to a waterfront station to sketch part of the station building and the blue sky, the clouds, and the pub building. So that's it for today. I'll see you soon next time, everyone. Bye.